All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Caitlin. I'm with Not My Kid, a nonprofit dedicated to providing the highest quality prevention and behavioral health programs for kids, families, and communities. We are here today with Partnership to End Addiction, a national nonprofit based in New York City. Partnership's mission is to transform how our nation addresses addiction by empowering families, advancing effective care, shaping public policy, and changing culture. Linda Richter is the Senior Vice President of Prevention Research and Analysis at Partnership to End Addiction, where she conducts research on the nature, scope, predictors, and consequences of all forms of substance use and addiction, especially among young people. Corey Hammond joins this team as the Director of Prevention Services. Partnerships Prevention Team leverages research to help raise awareness among parents, educators, health professionals, and policymakers about best practices in substance use prevention and addiction care. Today, we'll dive into the topic engaging families. This information is key to building a strong foundation of prevention programs in communities. So thank you, Linda and Corey and Janelle also for being here, and I will pass it on to you.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I also wanted to just quickly introduce Janelle, who's going to be my co-presenter this morning. Janelle is our new associate director on our prevention team. And so Janelle was integral in putting this presentation together and has a lot of experience presenting to families and caregivers. And so she'll be presenting the bulk of this one with me. So if you haven't joined us for one of our professional developments before, welcome. This is our prevention team. It's made up of myself, Linda, and Janelle. We are doing these once a month, and so we hope that if this is your first one, that you enjoy it and come back for more. And if it's not your first one, welcome back. Here is what we're going to be going over today. These are our key themes. The first is just an overview of parent and caregiver engagement, what that means. The second theme is the importance and the impact of positive family, school, and community relationships. And then we'll share some strategies on connecting, engaging, and sustaining family engagement. And we know that engaging parents is really hard. We consistently have challenges getting parents engaged in our services, and we're constantly hearing from other organizations that they have similar issues. So we're kind of all together in this struggle. We know that it can often feel that parents are the roadblock really in the way of us connecting with young people and getting them the services that we so desperately want to. And so it can be very frustrating. But we also know how difficult parenting is. And we know that parents and caregivers have a million valid reasons for not being able to be as fully engaged as we want them to be. So this presentation will have a lot of different options for things that you in your organizations can, attempt to try to increase parent engagement. But we know that every organization is different. So maybe try some of these strategies if you aren't already. Keep what works and ditch the rest. We know that budget limitations and staff shortages and other factors are really going to impact the feasibility of some of these suggestions. Our goal here is to offer some strategies that can be tailored to any type of different context that you might be working in, rather than implying that we have kind of a one-size-fits-all approach here. So family engagement in general involves the collaboration between organizational staff and parents and other caregivers to enhance children's learning, development, and overall well-being. And we very much know that this is a shared responsibility, a bi-directional responsibility. The staff, on one hand, are dedicated to fostering meaningful connections with families, but then on the other hand, you also need parents and caregivers who are committed to being involved. So it does take both sides. The importance and impact of this really can't be overstated. At the kind of student or young person level, we know that having families engaged can lead to higher grades and better engagement in their own school community, improved attendance, greater self-esteem, better graduation rates, and post-secondary enrollment. On the side of educators and teachers, we know that having good family engagement can increase their job satisfaction. They can have stronger student motivation, stronger family support, better perceptions of the students and the families that they're working with. On the family side, being involved in their school and community can increase their parent-child relationship, improved communication with the teachers, better advocacy skills, reduced isolation because they might be interacting with other families in the community. For the school system, there can be enhanced staff morale, positive school climate, higher teacher retention, increased community support. And then at the larger community level, we know that having everybody involved can lead to safer environments, fewer school suspensions, expanded after-school program participation, which we know is a great protective factor, and just greater youth and family involvement in all community level decisions. So this is, it's a huge topic because it can really impact all aspects of an individual, systems, communities. It really can have a really strong positive impact on so many levels. On the clinical side of things, because a lot of what this presentation we're talking about kind of school level or community organizations, what they can do to increase parent engagement. But we also know that this is very important for those who are clinicians and working with young people individually. So on the clinical side, we also recognize how important and difficult family involvement can be. We know from decades of research that when treating adolescents for what we might consider individual problems, things like substance use or ADHD, or behavioral issues, we know that family therapy is the most effective treatment. So this is relational treatment rather than individual treatment. And Partnership does a ton of work in this realm. If you are a clinician and want some resources around this, we'll share them at the end. But the whole idea is that we're understanding that problems don't exist solely within people. Individuals don't live in a vacuum. We live around other people. So the problems and their solutions exist between people and their larger systems. We know that many therapists and providers understand the value in family participation in youth treatment, but often find it very difficult to adapt their practice and get caregivers involved. And so again, we have a whole kind of clinical treatment and training arm of Partnership that does a lot of work in this area. So if you are a clinician that wants some more family engagement skills, we do have resources for that. And now I'm going to pass it to Janelle to go through our first section here, which is just strategies to enhance connection with families and caregivers.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Corey shared a lot of the different nuances and challenges that come with family connection, as well as the importance of it, I really want to re-emphasize that disclaimer that Corey shared that while connecting with parents is going to be very important, it's also very challenging, and there's no one size fits all. So the information that we gathered and that I'm going to share about different ways to directly and meaningful connect with parents is going to look different for everyone. When we're connected with parents or families, or really anyone who your intended audience is, the main takeaway here is to make that connection stage a priority. Be very intentional and seek collaboration at every stage. As Corey said, we don't live in a vacuum. We're in this ecosystem, and we should seek coalitions of support whenever we can to really achieve our shared missions and visions for what healthy families and children can look like. So one example of having this intentional opportunity for connection can look like adopting a no closed door policy, in which you can welcome interactions that may lean more positively or at times challenging. But we can always put a spin on that interaction as an opportunity for connection. So if a family member or a parent is approaching an organization with a challenge they're experiencing or a complaint, that's really a chance to make a connection with them and maintain that connection as the next important step. So what that may look like is regular touch points for follow-up. It's going to be important to get a little creative here. Think what that may look like in small or larger ways. So communicating with them via text messages, a phone call, an email, an event, a flyer, staying active and making sure that you're staying relevant to them. If you don't already have many opportunities to directly engage with parents or families, just based on your organization structure or the services you provide, it's going to be really important to find organizations to collaborate with that do have that parent focused. So, for example, that may look like partnering with parent support groups, PTAs, different faith-based programs. The approach here is to identify where parents tend to congregate and connect with that organization to establish some type of partnership. So I'll briefly share an example from my previous work where I delivered parent workshops around topics like communicating with teens about substance use and sexual activity. My organization wasn't a school or community center. So one real initial challenge was, how do we initiate contact with parents to even promote this workshop in the first place? So my team conducted outreach with over 30 schools in the Bronx specifically. We were calling and emailing their parent coordinators. If the school didn't have the staffing to have a parent coordinator role specifically, we would try to reach out to the assistant principals or the social workers. And sometimes we would just go to the schools and drop off flyers in person if those other forms of communication didn't work. And in the end, from our efforts, we were able to connect with about 10 of those schools. And these schools then included our workshop in their newsletters, sometimes in their text message programs. And about 5 of those schools invited us to host the workshops at their facility using the parents that they were already engaged with to attend these workshops. Next slide, please. So one of the most meaningful ways to engage with parents and really build that longer lasting relationship is going to be focused on empowerment. It can be a really common and challenging feeling for parents to feel that they don't know how to have that positive impact that they want to have in their children's lives. Parents may feel overwhelmed or frustrated and begin to doubt their ability to make an impact. So if we can really build parents up in this area, you'll have then created a meaningful connection with families. So what does that look like in action? I'm going to share 3 examples that may work in your context or may just have to be a starting point to jump in and create your own ideas. So one approach may be providing parents with clear, actionable strategies to support their children's education. So instead of telling parents, stay involved, help them, be really specific and concrete. So send homework, send the parents home with specific homework tips or guidance to reinforce what they're learning in the classrooms. So I know sometimes I would be working on a math problem that my mom didn't remember how to solve or how that was introduced. So what you can do as an organization is you can send some tips for parents who may be disengaged because they feel unsure about how to support their child in that area. You can provide specific step-by-step instructions on how to assist with specific homework types or learning activities that can make the parents feel more empowered to take an active role. A second example that I can share is, as an organization, provide opportunities to intentionally recognize the parents and their efforts. You know, a simple practice like linking student progress to parent involvement during your meetings, your events, can go a long way. So telling parents that your support in practicing math, for example, at home has really strengthened your child's problem solving, if we've seen it in these really tangible ways. My third and last example in this way is going to be make engagement more accessible by offering really small and manageable ways for parents to contribute. So rather than say, we need volunteers, let's really make that specific in terms of you need volunteers for a very specific task. We could use help creating posters for an upcoming event, and that's something that they can do with their child as a shared activity. Or we need parents to support with classroom prep for 1 hour next week. The goal is to help parents see the tangible ways that their efforts impact their child in a healthy and positive way, really reinforcing their belief and their ability to make a difference. So to be intentional about connecting with families really means planning. The planning stages usually can be twice as involving as the implementation stage. Planning is not always as exciting, and it's not usually what, we look forward to. It's really getting out there and doing the work. But planning is how we can set ourselves up for success. So this may look like having a annual vision and planning session, multiple sessions, where you set really clear and realistic goals for how you want engagement with parents to look like. What do you want it to sound like, to feel like? What strategies will you use throughout the year to achieve your goal? And it's going to be really important to set some measures or metrics that will tell you if you're on track to meet your goals. And that piece there will then give you the opportunity to make adjustments along the way. So the next 2 slides, we're going to look at some example strategies that may work for you, but keep in mind these recommendations really should be tailored to meet your own unique needs and based on the resources that you have available to you. So a very common thing if you're having in-person events is feed your attendance. It doesn't really have to be fancy or expensive, but it's really great and a nice show if you can have some light refreshments for people attending in-person events. Some other ideas in terms of you want to make sure that the parents are feeling like collaborators and you want to get their input. Some low stake ways that you can get parents' input is doing some interactive entrance posters. So if you're hosting an event or if you're partnering with a school or community center, you can set up posters with questions and a tally system where families can mark off or check off their response to questions at the main entrance. That's going to be a great opportunity where there's a lot of traffic, a lot of foot action. So for example, it can be questions around logistics. When are you most likely to attend an event? Weekends, evenings, get specific, and then people can just tally next to whatever resonates best with them. And that will be a bit of a convenience sample where it can be, again, just a jumping off point to try to figure out how can I reach as many parents logistically. During a parents' night, you can hand out a quick top 3 priorities cards for parents to fill in during the events. What we really want to emphasize with these strategies is how can we make it as convenient for the parents as possible, least time involved, no to low cost, and that you still get some information or some opportunities to engage with them. A fun idea could be a student-led survey. If you work directly with students or young age people, you can ask them to conduct a short survey or interview with their parents, asking them what are their priorities about engagement or how do they want to be involved with the school. Another poster idea is having a QR code so parents can just scan that on their way at any main entrance, and then they can answer your brief survey. When we say brief, we do mean brief. You want to make sure that no more than 10 questions to really make sure that people are responding to them and that you can actually get some information that you can work with. The last 2 on this slide are talking about teacher communications, partnering with schools, again, PTAs, parent ambassadors, and ask those parents who already have a touch point with parents to try to initiate communication for you. And the last thing here is a suggestion box. A way for anonymous feedback can really be a great way to get some insights where people may be a little shy or not want to be forthcoming with maybe a negative or perceived negative suggestion. So that's a nice anonymous low stakes way as well. On the last slide, similarly, some strategies, including information about your organization in the back to school packet, feedback stations at events, feedback stamps, again, things that really emphasize convenience, phone survey during outreach, having staff or volunteers call a sample of parents with a range of demographics just to get some initial feedback. Social media polls can be really fun and engaging. Having a parent voice section on your website where parents can interact online, submit feedbacks or notes. And the last thing is a text messaging campaign. That can be a chance to ask questions about barriers to attending events, what topics they want to hear, really tailoring your content and your events to meet the needs of parents, not what we think the needs should be, but really getting their voice involved. And then also that can be a way to maintain communication. As I mentioned before, having frequent touch points. So a text with some important information or helpful tips can just be a way to stay relevant in their lives.
Great. Thanks so much, Janelle. And so now I'm going to go through some more strategies to keep families engaged. Again, we know that not all schools and community organizations have the same resources. So a lot of this you'll have to take into account staff and budget. But a lot of these things are like small, low cost, and can have a lot of meaningful impact. And so the goal is to find a couple of these solutions that might be practical for your needs. I know a lot of us, including myself, might want to try to ignore it, but social media and marketing is really vital to getting the attention of parents and keeping their engagement. So we want to try to use dynamic and creative marketing strategies. And certainly I am not a marketing expert, but there are a lot of people who are. So we want to use platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok to share engaging content and event reminders. And it's important to kind of know what audience is on what platform. It's not super likely that you're going to reach a lot of youth on Facebook, and they're not going to, meaningfully engage on Facebook these days, but parents will. So you can tailor what information goes where for each platform based on who's there. You can use project management tools to plan and approve and schedule content. Social media gets a lot easier if you plan in advance. For those who aren't maybe social media savvy, you can distribute flyers. Physical media still has a place these days. And so you can use flyers in multiple languages with concise, compelling messages to get your information out. But otherwise, short, fun, informative videos featuring students and staff. I think a lot of people are intimidated by video, trying to create video content. But kind of the silver lining around the TikTok age and that type of marketing strategy is that it doesn't need to be perfect. And kind of being imperfect and having bloopers and flaws might make your content a little bit more engaging and more fun. But also you can use email as a great tool. We want emails to be short and colorful and engaging. And finally, you can recruit parent volunteers who are engaged to act as ambassadors, kind of word of mouth, and they'll promote events and encourage other parents to join. A little bit more about social media and just kind of writing content. We want to address our target audience directly. We want to have clear and compelling calls to action. We want to highlight the benefits of coming and kind of what the value of being there would be. We want to try to stay consistent with brand identity, which maybe is for the marketing team and not for some of us to decide. But, you want to be able to, you want your content to be readable with a lot of white space. You certainly want to proofread. There's nothing worse than sending out an email to 1,000 people and then seeing a typo in it makes you want to just, it's certainly a disappointment. So proofread. And kind of the don'ts are a lot of the opposite of the do's. So don't let kind of flashy colors or effects overshadow your content. Don't rely on just one distribution channel. Try to diversify if you can. And don't omit essential contact information. You want a way for people to get in touch with you if they have questions. You want to make sure that all the important information is on there. There's nothing worse than a flyer that has all of the information but doesn't say what day. You want to make sure everything's on there. Another great strategy for engaging families is offering incentives for participation. You can offer gift cards or merchandise or local business swag, anything as prizes for attending events. Small tokens of appreciation, water bottles, notebooks, snacks, everybody loves food. You could host a friendly contest like a step challenge or a recipe swap with prizes for people who win. Or you could offer other small benefits like childcare for the event, transportation to and from the event, just solutions to a lot of the challenges that people might have for not attending. And even if it's totally unrelated to the topic that you want parents to engage with, helping parents out with something that they need can at least get them in the door. And then the opportunity is there for you to engage with them on what you really want them to know. If you're starting out with incentives, it can be kind of hard to not get your feelings hurt if you're thinking that people are just showing up to get their gift card or whatever the incentive is. But we feel this too. Our best advice here is just to not take it personally and just know that you're trying to get them in the door. And once they are in the door, then you can engage them in your services and you can engage them in your space. And then the next time they come back, maybe it's because of the services and the care that they received and not just because of the incentive. If you do want to offer incentives, but you find that it takes a lot of time and is kind of an annoying process, there are virtual gift cards, which can make this a whole lot easier. Again, if your budget allows. Emailing gift cards can really simplify how to distribute these. You don't need to mail physical gift cards. You don't need people to come in person to pick them up. There are online services. We'll talk about it at the end also, but there's things like Tango is a service that you can use to let recipients choose from different retailers so they get what kind of gift card they want. With something like this, you want to make sure that you get email addresses right, so you're sending it to the right person. Greenfire is another one of these services. Greenfire is used mostly for clinical research trials, but if you want to reward someone for coming to sessions, or if you have, an evidence-based program that's multiple weeks long and you want to provide incentives for coming to each week. So if you want the ability to reload the same gift card multiple times, something like Greenfire could be helpful. They're basically reloadable debit cards, and you can just load them from the online platform. Very easy to use. So there's a lot of services out there if this is something that you want to do but find it kind of daunting. We want to try to be as flexible as possible. We know this is hard, but parents and caregivers have a lot of varied work hours, transportation challenges, responsibilities. So offering both in-person and virtual options is great. We want to let those who can't make it in person to still engage. And not having your events at the same time on the same day every month, trying to rotate a little bit. So if someone is always working Thursday nights and you only have events on Thursday nights, they're never going to be able to come. So trying to vary it a little bit. And we want to just provide enough options so that no family feels totally excluded due to any number of barriers. So online options, we know that Not My Kid does a great job of recording, our webinars and parent webinars, and then uploading them to YouTube so that people can access them at a later date. That's a great example of being flexible like this. We also want our services to be inclusive, and so that means in our language, trying to be clear and concise and free of jargon whenever possible, providing translation. Again, we know that that's a budget constraint and a staff constraint and a time constraint, but whatever possible, providing your information in multiple languages for those in the community that need it. We want our methods to reflect the diversity in our communities. So maybe that means utilizing WhatsApp or other text messaging apps that are popular, bilingual newsletters, video messages that are tailored to specific groups, casting a wide net. Also recognizing that grandparents or other relatives that are raising young kids might benefit from more in-person communication, so conversations, phone calls, offering those types of options just to better cater to a whole host of different groups. Trying to understand the demographic makeup of your community so that you can personalize your engagement, so you can collect information on the types of backgrounds and the people that are living near you. This one's kind of difficult, but for families who are reaching out for services who have just immigrated to the US, we want to acknowledge and validate the concerns that immigrant families may have about engaging with community programs. And so giving them some reassurance to help them feel safer can help them be more willing to engage in school programs and community events. So when possible, trying to communicate that your organization or event is not affiliated with enforcement agencies like CPS or ICE can be really nice. I know, for instance, at Partnership, there was a time when I was working with home visiting services. So we were offering resource fairs for young moms that were getting home visiting services through the state. But unfortunately, the resource fair and the home visiting service building is in the same building as CPS. And so none of the moms wanted to come because they were concerned about CPS being there, which is totally valid. And so, that was certainly an oversight on our planning committee, but, doing our best to acknowledge and understand those concerns and distancing yourself from enforcement when possible. And that also means you could maybe host cultural orientation sessions to get families familiar with how the community is working, school routines, available resources. You can partner with support organizations to better provide translation services or legal assistance. And we can celebrate cultural diversity with potlucks or heritage weeks, everything to make people feel like they belong in the community. For families who recently moved to your community, you can have welcome packets with resources, a list of your resources and events. You could host meet and greet sessions for families who want to connect with each other. You could pair families with a buddy family, just getting families to talk to each other, really. For families of children with disabilities, you can collaborate with special education coordinators or host workshops on how to get IEPs. We know that a lot of families have difficulties with that. Support groups and making sure that our events are accessible, whether from a physical standpoint, like wheelchair-friendly spaces, or a communication standpoint, like having interpreters when possible. We want to recognize and celebrate diverse holidays and traditions. We want to make sure that we're not scheduling our events on cultural and religious observances in mind. Like, for instance, I used to live in New Orleans, and then there were some events that would always try to take place during the week of Mardi Gras, and it was like we're not taking into account the culture here. Leveraging seasonal themes to align with our messaging at key times of the year. You know, fall, back to school, winter, you can do mental health and stress management, spring, preparing for the summer. You know, leveraging seasonal themes like this helps to ensure that our programming matches what parents and caregivers are interested in and what's most relevant to them. Like, for instance, high school parents might be anxious or nervous about prom and graduation and risky behavior during these times. So holding events or giving information about those topics at that time shows that you're in tune with what's going on with their lives. Similarly, if you know that parents are talking about something as being a problem right now, you can focus on those when you hear them come up. Like if you hear parents talking about bullying, having a bullying intervention, having digital literacy for families, if you're worried about, if you're hearing parents talking about cyberbullying, you know, just sticking with what parents are finding interesting and refining your approach based on what's going on. And this one's difficult, but we want to try to engage families holistically when possible. You know, at least for some of the organizations that we work with, some are very strict in their niche, but we want to try to be a little bit wider with the services and our perspective. So you can go beyond just student or academically focused messaging to address all of the challenges that are faced by parents and caregivers, just with the idea that we recognize that healthy families are better equipped to support their children. So that might mean offering general events and resources on all types of health: physical, emotional, social, nutritional, financial, workshops or initiatives on stress management or financial literacy, or fitness classes just for the parents and caregivers. And, you know, maybe offering a parent cooking class or a parent yoga class has nothing to do with engaging parents in substance use prevention. But if you get them to come and you get them to trust you and engage with your space and your organization and your people, then you have an opportunity to move the needle on your mission because you have that trust and rapport with them. You can also collaborate with other organizations, like other community organizations, faith-based organizations, to provide support services. You're going to have a lot more traction with the services that you want to provide if the people that you're serving know that you care about them, and see them as a whole person with needs. So whether that's getting in on food pantries or housing shelters or seasonal clothing programs, you know, just kind of widening our lens on what we can offer for families. And so this last section is pretty short, just some strategies to sustain engagement. And some of this is a little bit of a recap. A lot of this is just adapting to what comes up. You know, we want to plan very well. But we also don't want to just offer our solutions once and then abandon them. We want to have ongoing support. And so doing that, we can help to address some common challenges in keeping families involved. So that's offering flexibility in when our services and our events are, rescheduling, resolving scheduling or transportation conflicts, by providing lots of different options. We want to offer translation services, culturally responsive outreach, partner with other organizations to provide childcare or other basic needs. On the administrative side, so we can set personalized benchmarks for family communication. And so this means, you know, having proper administrative planning for this and really showing that it's a goal. So, maybe you have a goal with your staff to reach out to 3 families per week with positive updates about what their kid has been doing in group, or asking about parent concerns 3 times a week, and then, checking in on those and making sure it's happening. Um, or maybe your organization sets a goal that each staff member has a different way of communicating. So someone's taking care of WhatsApp, someone's doing email, someone's doing phone calls, and tracking what's working best. You can develop a structured framework for goal-linked programs. So this just means measuring what you're doing. So you could have, a monthly webinar series, something like this, but for parents. And then having pre and post webinar surveys to measure the changes in how parents are feeling and tracking that over time. You can have a program where parents and students are setting goals together and then tracking that over time and seeing how it's going. And then finally, with, admin and staff support, obviously having professional development like this counts towards that. When it comes to resourcing, we want to put money towards this. We know it's difficult with budgeting, but if you find that this is a goal for your organization, put money towards it. So you can fund translation services, or more incentives for families, or more services for families to help them get there for your events. So having specific budget line for family engagement techniques. Again, some more professional development. Obviously, for the people in your organization who are parents themselves, you can leverage that lived experience of what helps them to become engaged in their kid's life or in the services that they're receiving. We want to have professional development opportunities on communication skills and problem-solving techniques, and certainly identifying and addressing biases. And finally, we're going to end by sharing some more resources for organizations. The first is our text messaging programs through Partnership. So Partnership, we have a host of automated text messaging programs for parents that anyone in the country can join, but we also use that platform for organizations who want to better connect with their parent base or community members. So this is kind of an example of what that looks like. So we have a platform where we can send out scheduled program messages or specific one-off text messages. Like if you want to send parents a reminder about an event that's happening that week. This type of program can be a good option if you are looking for a consistent way to contact parents and you already have a base of parents who could be interested and would be engaged to join programming if they just had a little bit of help and some reminders and constant communication. So this is an option for organizations. If they want some help with communication, we can help them with that. We also have, I mentioned this in the beginning, we have trainings available for clinicians or those who work with families and young people and hope to increase their family engagement skills. So this is an online training called Family Frame, and it's the distillation of core elements of family therapy. So there was a long, robust research process that went into this. And so this is helping clinicians improve their family therapy skills. It supports practitioners in teaching more effective behaviors to individuals with substance use and behavioral health issues and their families, and promotes self-care among the family members. Things like positive communication, positive reinforcement, problem solving, and a whole host of others. It's an asynchronous training that we provide. Also, there's the kind of outside of Partnership, there's the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement. and they have a whole host of family engagement toolkits. So these are resources for any type of professional who's involved in working with families or communities. These toolkits can be used kind of at an organizational level to try to bolster family engagement in their programs, as well as they also have very specific programs that organizations can use to increase their own family engagement. For those who work closely with schools, the National PTA or website, which I think is just pta.org, they have a center for family engagement with resource lists and trainings, national standards, and a whole host of other useful information. And while it is, targeted towards, obviously, PTAs work with schools, I think a lot of the training and standards could be helpful for outside of a school context. Wanted to show this again. This is the gift card help. If you're finding that buying and sending gift cards is time consuming and annoying, there's a lot of companies that can help with that. Tango is just one of them. So if you have the budget to offer incentives and would like an easier way to do that, this is an option. And some of them are free, so you can look into those. And we finished a little bit early, but here's our contact information as always. And if anyone has any questions, Janelle, Linda, and I are here to answer. But otherwise, thanks so much for joining this morning. And I hope that you all have a great rest of the day.